Hello everybody and welcome back to another video on the channel, and in today's video I want to talk about all the R2 spellments and how they're going to affect the meta, and a lot of the cards in live realm that were broken are nerfed in test realm, and I want to talk about how it's going to affect everything and the best cards and the best winners and losers, of course, for every school within the spring update. In general, I do want to say the elemental schools got a lot better this update. So let's talk about the meta defining cards that have been ruining the game the past 8 months. Number 1, Banshee. Now, this is finally nerfed to the point every school is not going to be running Banshee, which is what happened over the past 8 months, which was absolutely annoying and drove me insane. The only schools that are going to be running this is probably maybe Ice, Death, and Storm, because it actually sets up their Gambit. Other schools like Life, Balance, etc. are not going to be running it because it doesn't really help them or gain any tempo for them. It's just like a neutral move, pretty much. This card was breaking the game so much to the point that Storm players just literally could not play the game. Right? If you look at over half of Storm's library, they could not do anything, right? You couldn't Stormblade, you couldn't Storm Spear, you couldn't literally go for like a, a Catch of the Day, you couldn't go for a Hammer of Thor, a Reap the Whirlwind. Even going for a Kraken before the change, you couldn't do that because that would get Bansheed as well. Even Rusalka Blades were getting Bansheed immediately because of how OP it was. Triton Blades were also getting Bansheed immediately. And God forbid you actually went for like a Storm Scion or like a Teacup, you would just get Bansheed immediately and just fall over and die. So this change actually makes Storm playable and actually makes Blades a card that can be used again in the meta. So I think you're going to see Storms doing a lot more things like setting up a Scion, going for a Teacup, maybe gambiting their Blades for Sirens, which is a new card that Storm got that I think is really, really good. In general, Banshee being as broken as it was for so long was a very, very unhealthy state for Wiz to be in, and this one is just a lot more reasonable and a lot more healthy for the game. Next up, I want to talk about Hydra. Now, Hydra has been obviously one of the most broken cards for quite some time in 5th Age, and it's getting a change again within this update. Hydra is no longer broken. Okay, Hydra now is damage nerfed, right? I think it used to be 220, and now it's 170, so that's like a total 150 damage shaved off. It actually did get buffed to echoing 4 shields and 55 shields, but here's the trick, guys, okay? You only get those shields back if the opponent has remaining shields. So for example, if I cast an elemental shield now and they Hydra, it's just going to do negative damage into the shield and they're not going to get anything back. However, if I spam tri-shield, 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 they're actually going to get like 4 Echo 55 shields back, which still would technically be a decent good move. And again, that's a lot more reasonable, just like the Banshee thing, and it actually leaves room to have counterplay in the game. Also, top path Hydra is banned because again, it's just above DPP. They are missing a couple of things in test realm right now, like the TC stuff have not been changed, right? TC Hydra is still the old Hydra and super broken, and we have a couple of cards still above damage per pip, but I imagine that's an oversight and KI will do something about the cards inside. Now you're probably asking yourself, Liam, okay, well what did Balance get if we can't Hydra anymore? We're just gonna like, what, mana burn our opponent to death? Yeah, pretty much. However, you did get quite a lot this update. You still have Gearhead that's extremely broken, okay? And you actually have a lot of good cards, right? Sabretooth is an extremely good heal counter. I got absolutely slapped by this on my Storm. I got Sabretooth like 4 times in a row, and I just fell over and I died. It was horrible. King Artorias is a weakness counter as well. It echoes weaknesses back on the opponent if you have some on you. And Chimera echoes overtimes onto the opponent as well if you have them on you. And Raw, you get a pip back if the opponent is blade stacking. So basically, KingsIsle has given Balance an answer to every hanging effect with the Arc 2 spell elements, which again I think is really good because now you're probably going to see Balance Wizards run, all of these cards almost as like counters and ways to move the game forward rather than, stall with Mana Burn, Brace, Hydra. Myth actually got a couple of nerfs this update. It did get some really good and unique Arc 2 spellements, but it got more of like a tempo nerf, I want to say. Essentially, you can no longer Medusa at all. It's PvP banned, just like Basilisk. So if you don't pull a stun block within the first 3 or 4 rounds, that doesn't mean you're going to lose like it is currently in live realm. This slows things down in general in the meta, and I think we're going to see stun blocks just be like removed from the game entirely and just hit and stuns gone entirely, which I think is an interesting concept in general, but we'll have to see if the devs go through with that or not. Currently in test realm, about half of the stuns are banned in the game. Like I said, Banshee, Medusa, Stormlord. I think we still have like Winter Moon. But yeah, you still have your super broke shield gambit. However, the counters to these shield gambits actually got pretty giga buffed. Balance obviously has the new Pyro Nova, which in case you guys don't know, gives you a pip back per shield on the opponent. Also, Myth got an Arc 2 spellment that is absolutely just insane, with Banshee clearing 8 shields for 8 towers on yourself and then doing 1,000 damage. That's like deferred damage over time. That also sets up your Oni, Trickster Oni, on a Myth. And Fire also got Fire King Artorias, which is just like such a beautiful card. Probably my favorite card of this entire update. Just a beautiful, good card. I think Fire really needed something like this, which I think is really great for them. Fire King Artorias clears 7 shields for 2 heal overtimes on yourself that last 5 rounds, and then it hits for 815 damage. So it's basically like a Elephant Spellman in live realm that's like double the damage and like double the clear, and you heal on steroids. I think now with the counters being this good, it's not going to be worth it going for a shield gambit against a Fire or a Myth. In live realm, there's kind of a bad idea, but if you were a good player and you pace yourself well, you could still set up a shield gambit in live because of the amount of tempo you got. However, I'm a little bit concerned because they didn't actually buff the counters for other schools, right? Oni's Forge is still a really bad card. Minotaur is still like not really a good move. So to reiterate, we have basically a nerf to shield gambits because the counters got giga buffed, like the new Fire King Artorias and the new Basilisk. Hydra got nerfed pretty heavily as well. Banshee got nerfed pretty heavily as well. Now the last thing you're probably asking yourself is, Liam, what did they do to Drains? Well, absolutely nothing. But I think this is simply because they just didn't get around to it yet. Vampire is still really broken in test realm. Ghoul is still really broken. Wraith, and just like I said, Drains in general, still really broken in test realm. I'm not sure if they're gonna get around to auditing Drains and Ghoul and Vampire and stuff like that in this test realm, or they're gonna do it later on. But I think they are looking into standardizing the TC, which I think is probably the biggest thing they should focus on right now with like this update and build on the test realm. I think in general this update is really good and really healthy for the game. It just makes the game actually more about skill expression and not just make you want to barf every time you see a Banshee or a Hydra. Now let's talk about the biggest winners and the biggest losers of this update. So I said at the start of the video, it's kind of like the elemental schools. I think that got the biggest buff of them all. The best cards currently on a Storm as of this update for Arc 2 spellments are gonna have to be Siren. It's kind of like Vampire, but you convert bad blades into good blades, which is kind of cool while you hit and do a decent bit of damage. Leviathan also is a pretty good counter to the new sort of overtimes in the game. I'm a little concerned about the removal not keeping up with the amount of dots being generated. I think Stormlord is a cool card, but I think it's just not good. Same thing with the new King Artorias. I was really hoping the spell would be good, but the damage buff just isn't really that consequential, and Bottom Path Triton is just better than Bottom Path King Artorias. The new Owl is pretty good as well. Top Path Owl, just better than Ursulka. Beautiful card. Bottom Path Owl, I'm still kind of got mixed feelings about it. It's not bad, it's just really hard to get heals on yourself to get the pip value back because they didn't buff HOTS within this update. The new Golem as well is decent. I think the best Golems of this update are gonna have to go to Ice and Death, however. Myth Golem isn't bad, and Storm Golem isn't bad. I'd say the fire and life ones are pretty bad though. And that's pretty much it for the Storm School. Ice got a couple of nice buffs as well. They can actually now punish auras and stuff like that, and weaknesses. I think Ice got a pretty big buff this update, simply because that you just can't really do much against them, right? If you Blade, you're gonna get slapped. If you weakness in Ice, you're gonna get slapped. And if you Aura, you're going to get slapped by the new Thieving Dragon card. So Ice has a lot of answers to everything now, and I think it's gonna be quite a demon of a school. And lastly, Fire, like I said at the start, it got a ridiculous King Artorias. Ifrit is actually PvP banned. I said this would happen. I got so much hate for it, but I was just literally just spitting the facts for like the past year. This card was on the chopping block for a while now. Does not follow the rules of identity at all. However, the new Ifrit they gave Fire, the bottom path one, actually isn't bad at all. I think one of my biggest concerns with the Fire update is I think they kind of went a little bit too far with dot creation, and the counters aren't really going to keep up numerically. However, I am happy for Fire mains because now you can actually play around with dots, and you have cards like Sun Serpent which do a ridiculous amount of damage, 1635, which is absolutely incredible. And you actually have really good trap counters now on a Fire as well. I'm a little concerned about the Hot library. It's easily the worst one as of 5th age, and it still seems to be the worst one. Dots did get a buff, but Hots haven't yet, so we'll have to see what KingSao is going to do about making Hots better and more usable. If they gave Hots like the dot treatment, I think they'd be fine. Your best cards this update on a Fire, in my opinion, are going to be the new King Artorias. Ifrit isn't bad, and I think Fire Dragon is going to be your best trap counter. Also, the new Glimpse of Infinity is really good as well, and the new Phoenix is actually going to be really good when you combine this with the Nathib Scarab. This Phoenix is way better than the one we had before, and I'm really happy to see it potentially be good, right? You could even go for a S'more and then Gambit those overtime traps to heal yourself, and then go for an Oni. But yeah, that's everything I got for the video, guys. If you made it this far, be sure to leave a like and a sub. It helps me out a lot, and I will see you guys on the next videos. Thank you for being here. Take care.